Stupid. Then there's our president who couldn't read a room if it was a book called A Room. That's an improvement. Amidst a countrywide crime wave, what's he do? He craps on every cop. He pushes a police reform bill because it happened to be the 2-year anniversary of George Floyd's death. Yes, he exploited the calendar for political symbolism, while people, and kids included, continue to be killed in cities like Chicago and Philly. You might call him tone deaf, but he wouldn't hear you. But the media and the Dems don't give a about other crime because they might have to blame themselves. Instead, Joe signs an executive order that targets policing as America once again preps for a violent summer. All because he couldn't let an anniversary go to waste. And yet he says nothing about the after effects of Floyd, meaning the rioting. It's like commemorating the anniversary of Hurricane Katrina, but not mentioning the destruction it did after. It had to be about the cops. And because Joe's got almost no working memory left, he assumed you do too, by falsely claiming that Republicans opposed any reform on policing. He's either lying intentionally or he refuses to take his Prevagen.
The House passed a strong bill. It failed in the Senate, where our Republican colleagues opposed any meaningful reform.
That is, of course, For Democrats, filibustered police reforms proposed by Senator Tim Scott, a black Republican, or as liberals might call him, a white supremacist.
In 2015, after the shooting of Walter Scott, I wrote a bill to fund body cameras. Last year, after the deaths of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, I built an even bigger police reform proposal. But my Democratic colleagues blocked it. I extended an olive branch. I offered amendments, but Democrats used a filibuster to block the debate from even happening.
Now imagine if they had listened to Scott. Life might have been better by now. We might have unified a country with low crime and high spirits. But they didn't want that. They didn't because they didn't want Republicans to lead the way. The Dems are like the really drunk guy at the party who insists he doesn't need a ride home from you to get home, and of course ends up crashing. It's how they work. It's not about a solution. It's making sure the Republicans have no part in it. So they'll take your misery over any reform. Right, Joe?
We needed to reform. Reform, not deform. Isn't that what the squad girl said? Defund. We're not going to defund. We're going to refund. I'm going to give you a refund. A reset. A redo. A de-do. De-do. Hey, knock it off.
Of course. Of course, the reason why Biden did this executive order is due to a narrative that's already come apart at the seams like one of Stelter's sofa cushions. We were told by Dems in the media that police were overwhelmingly targeting unarmed black males, when actually it was the criminals they let out who were doing most of the targeting. And data shows police were less likely to use lethal force against black than white suspects. Of course, the professor behind the study was canceled faster than Chris Wallace's corporate credit card.
Good for you.
I can't help it.
I'm trying to fight that one.
I know, I can't. I'm a jerk. That's not to say cops were in the right all the time and what happened to Floyd wasn't seriously wrong, but when you look at the billions in damages and lives lost over this misconception, it's beyond belief that anyone could think pushing this lie was worth it. Well, except for the Democrat Party, who saw an election in their grasp. And now what do we have? Well, violent crimes have increased anywhere from 5 to 40% in some of America's biggest cities compared to the same time frame in 2021. And it's this murder surge that disproportionately affects black victims. Meanwhile, former President Barack Obama's attempts to link this week's mass shooting in Texas to George Floyd's murder. But the two are as unrelated as Woody Allen and Ronan Farrow. Yeah, that's a good one.
On fire.
Yes. How does making that connection help? It doesn't. How does that lead to unity? It doesn't. It's political symbolism. And let's face it, the Dems are really good at it. You could say they invented it. You could also say it's the only thing they could invent. They suck at everything else, especially uniting a country.